the beginning, so this is why we need to finalize this process first.
Я специально для господина Рютте, как большого любителя истории, приведу историческую справку.
An historical note for Mr. Rutte specifically, because he's enjoying history.
В Китае была гражданская война между коммунистами и националистами.
China had a civil war between the communists and the nationalists.
Мао Цзэдун и Чай Канши.
Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong.
Чай Канши все время настаивал, что надо лично встретиться и обо всем договориться.
And Chiang Kai-shek insisted on having a personal meeting to agree upon everything.
По-моему, в итоге раз 5 встречались.
And I believe they had meeting.
Фотографировались, улыбались. Только это не привело к окончанию гражданской войны.
There was a meeting with the photographs and smiles, but this did not put an end to the civil war.
Базовые вопросы, базовые противоречия были не решены.
Since the basic contradictions and the differences were not solved.
Война продолжалась.
And the war continued.
Ну, кстати сказать, несмотря на массированную западную военную помощь, все равно националисты проиграли эту войну, победили коммунисты.
And despite the larger-scale Western aid, the nationalists lost the war
Так что
and the
встреча
communists
должна
won.
быть соответствующим образом подготовлена.
A meeting,
Только тогда она имеет смысл.
a meeting
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is July 24th, 2025. It is Thursday. And what you see in the beginning, I deliberately put this out, very long intro, is Mr. Medinsky, who is the head of the Russian delegation on those so-called negotiations in Istanbul. He is giving Mr. Rutte, you know, the dude who is in charge of NATO, you know. So he gives him an historic lesson about China and Chiang Kai-shek and Mao forces. And it's actually, I'm really delighted. This is what I was talking about non-stop. All those negotiations, all so-called negotiations, they're really not negotiations at all. These are all legerdemain, political legerdemain, especially on the part of Trump administration, trying to convince Zelensky regime to negotiate something with the Russians, because the only thing Mr. Trump wants is to get the hell out of the situation, but on American conditions. No, it's not going to happen, and special military operation will continue, and there will be no ceasefire except the ceasefire which was discussed in terms of 24 to 48 hours long ceasefire on the line of the combat contact to allow removal of the bodies. Overwhelming majority of those bodies are bodies of the Ukrainian servicemen. They are laying there, they rot, and as you understand, they present the, you know, health hazard for both sides, including Ukrainian servicemen who sit in their dugouts and await the same fate, you know, basically to be killed in, you know, what industrial quantities. And that's pretty much the only thing which is being discussed by Russians and Ukrainians. And Mr. Medinsky, apart from making a number of the very interesting statements, apart from this one, he actually gave the really good history lesson to Mr. Rutte. And of course, Mr. Rutte knows nothing. He is a classic Western politician, highly uncultured, highly uneducated, highly limited in his scope, basically, of the worldview. So, and as you might expect, it's really interesting to listen to that, and that gives you a little bit of the insight into the Russian intentions, which of course are, what can I say, the situation on the front for Ukrainian forces is becoming catastrophic. They already beginning to say, which is the first indication that it is over. They already giving up on Pokrovsk, and suddenly Pokrovsk is not really that of the strategic importance. And so is Konstantinovka. And we have the 8,000 so-called infantry of armed forces of Ukraine trapped in Pokrovsk, and Russian diversionary recon group already operating inside it. So it's, how to say it, let's take a look at the tally for yesterday actually. So as you can see yourself, so we have another 1,200 plus you have 4 MLRS which have been annihilated. As you can see yourself, it's an absolute meat grinder, and even by conservative estimates, Russian Ministry of Defense, we have 1,287,430 personnel which was accounted for, which is primarily killed on the line of the combat contact. So we can easily say that Ukraine lost 1.5 million dead and probably about 2 million wounded, maimed, and what have you. So Russians, of course, as I already constantly state, actually, face this dilemma of what to do with those people. So, and of course, there is a hysteria all over the place in Ukraine, especially when we deal with the, who would ever thought, New York Times, this is the rag. And I can tell you immediately, I will never reject or, unsay my words when I say that most of the Western establishment media are war criminals. But even they, suddenly, they have this famous article, which was, as you can see yourself, a couple of weeks ago, almost a couple of weeks ago, and photographs and reporting by Nena Haitman, a landscape of death, what's left where Ukraine invaded Russia. So she went to Kursk Oblast, where actually the Russian government granted her this trip there. So, and she spent 6 days in the frontline areas of Russia's Kursk region, escorted at times by members of the Akhmat Special Forces unit evacuating the area. And as you might expect, it's a sappy sentimental, make no mistake. Anybody who wants to accuse me that I'm saying discounting what she wrote there, no. We know the tragedy of the civilians. We know what was happening, and it's absolutely heartbreaking, and especially the case of the theft and essentially corruption by the former Kursk governor and his ilk, who essentially stole the money for the basically engineering provision of the line of defense there. But so she reports about it. You can go, that's why I have to maintain this idiotic subscription to New York Times and Washington Post to, basically make a career out of ridiculing them. But here she writes that I reported there for 6 days, escorted at times by members of Russia's Chechnya-based Akhmat Special Forces unit, which had fought to reclaim the area and was helping with evacuations. Mines, unexploded drones, and rockets lay everywhere. The miners worked tirelessly while soldiers sifted through rubble and woodland collecting remains. Mostly, we know that they basically killed 80,000 of their personnel. This is the one of the demonstrations of the amateurish operational planning by NATO. And so, what can I say? She reports obviously on the fate of civilians. So, and she talks about things which are, it's so funny. The New York, she talks about killed civilians. Yeah, obviously Russians, that I'm being facetious. Russians, the only thing they do, they kill civilians. Oh, please. Who killed these people? And under what circumstances is unclear. Well, it's unclear to New York Times, but obviously it's very clear for example, Investigative Committee of Russia, which documented, enormous number of the atrocities committed against Russian civilians in Kursk Oblast. But of course, it's New York Times. They pretend that they don't know. Those people have no morals, nothing. It's just, one-cell organisms which just need to push these stories about suffering, and they enjoy it. And so the New York Times previously documented 2 instances of indiscriminate use of lethal force against Kursk civilians early in the incursion, actions that may amount to war crimes. Well, New York Times is a war criminal. They are the people who were pushing this whole situation, which resulted in the special military operation. And they were completely ignoring what was Ukrainian Nazis committing against Russian civilians. But reporters were unable to establish who was responsible for those deaths. First, American reporter generally is a moron and basically, human waste, basically. So they cannot establish anything because they need to have professionals, such as professionals who work for Russia's Investigative Committee, which is, it's sort of like Russian FBI, but it's a little bit different. So, and only they, with their technology and skills, can establish facts on the ground. As per so-called reporters, especially New York Times reporters and establishment reporters in the West, they were supporters of the atrocity, and the only thing they cared about is how to harm Russians, period. And now suddenly the narrative is changing because, well, essentially, you know what is happening. The Russians inexorably move to the West, and yeah, there are some brigades now, which is the established fact of Ukrainian armed forces, as some of them scream out of Pokrovsk, well, our brigade has no infantry left. What did you expect? It's war, you will be killed, you can try to surrender, but of course your own people will shoot you in the back. So, but what can I say? This is NATO training, guys, and so this is what is coming for Ukraine before they remove Zelensky. And some people say that then, of course, the outward, outright Nazis, such as group of Beletsky, will come to power, and that will be the end of Ukraine, because maybe Russians need to flatten Kiev and be done with it. And anybody who invokes those like, oh yeah, with the same, orthodox route, no, we don't. Russians and Ukrainians are different people, and it has been fully established now. And what can I say? They are suddenly now. I'm going to be discussing this later today with Garland Nixon. They are suddenly rioting or doing another Maidan against NABU and all those anti-corruption organizations, institutions, which essentially, Zelensky regime simply closed, because obviously, who knows, there are those money, billions upon billions dollars, which disappeared into thin air, so, but yeah, it's a panopticon, it's a circus, and anybody who takes it seriously, the same as they have to take seriously the circus which is happening in Washington, D.C., I'm sorry, guys, you have to have your head checked, and with a serious psychologist, let alone the psychiatrist, because what we are observing is a complete mess. It's I don't know, it's not human tragedy. It is tragedy on the geopolitical level of such. I never saw anything like this, honestly, never. So, but what can I say? That's just me. So, when we know that essentially New York Times said its word, so to speak, and wanted to really explain why, for example, they cannot win, those Ukrainians, and what is happening now in the Odessa and Chernigov and Cherkasy, Novocherkassk and all that. They all get these wonderful visits by Russian geraniums, while in reality we have the situation with the Patriots. And of course, when we talk about the Patriots, there was a Spiegel reporting a couple of days ago. Oh no, it was yesterday actually, 23rd, that, and Spiegel writes, why the search for Patriot system is so arduous for Ukraine? For some reason, those people still think that somehow Patriot can, save Ukraine from, it cannot. It's a useless system when dealing with the most modern Russian, which is, well, all of them are modern, fire means and strike means, standoff weapons. So, and as you can see yourself, when you have the especially trained, the geometrically pointed towards the target or towards the sector launchers, what do you expect? I mean, it's a complex which is basically obsolete. But however, Defense Minister Pistorius urges European allies to participate in air defense support. But he also makes it clear, ultimately it depends on commitments from the USA. Well, let me explain something why it is important. So as you can see yourself, this is already actually Agence France Press reporting yesterday that Germany seeks US guarantee before sending Patriots to Ukraine. Germany needs firm US assurance that it will quickly receive replacement Patriots and anti-missile system if it sends 2 of its own units to Ukraine, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said Wednesday. Basically sending 2 units, whatever they call, what you see here in the photo, for example, it's you can see yourself the main thing which makes the Patriot work, which is radar to the right, and one of the launchers which houses 4 missiles, MIM-104, whatever the hell the name of those missiles, doesn't matter. So usually the battery consists of up to 8 launchers, so that means 32 missiles, but in reality it could be probably 4, 6 at best. So as you may understand, they already have those truncated, so to speak, batteries being shipped to Ukraine, and where they immediately being shut down. Not down, I mean, basically blown up to smithereens. So, and Germans obviously are in a bind here, because look what is happening with these Patriots. Well, United States doesn't have Patriots anymore to send. Essentially, it's already crossed a long time ago down from the untouchable stores and is basically scratching the bottom of the barrel. But look what is the scheme United States offers to those chihuahuas from Germany. US President Donald Trump last week announced a deal with NATO chief Mark Rutte for European alliance members to buy US weaponry, particularly Patriot systems, for Kyiv to help in its war against Russia. But concern has grown as Washington wants European allies to first send Patriot systems for their own stocks to Ukraine and then wait for replacements from the United States. Countries including Norway, Sweden and the Netherlands had declared their willingness to finance Patriot systems, but Pistorius said no decision has been made as to which country could supply Patriot systems to Ukraine. The whole idea is actually, obviously, it's a classic Trump and American scheme, is to make those guys ship their Patriot systems to Ukraine and then pay money to the United States, that United States maybe sometime in the future, many years ahead, will supply those systems to Patriot systems, which are already obsolete, to European allies, quote unquote. It is mind-boggling, the whole thing, and there you see that everything you need to know about NATO and everything you need to know about Trump administration and its relations with its so-called Western allies. So as Spiegel reports and Germans report in general, German media, that if Ukraine gets those Patriots, not that it's going to help it, that's probably going to be sometime next year, probably spring 2026. Okay, what can I say? I mean, good luck. I have no words to describe this. This is so ridiculous. This is so out there in its sheer idiocy and parade and demonstrating, for the whole world to see that impotence, technological and industrial impotence of the United States and Europeans, not to speak about them being militarily, them paper tigers. And so this whole story with the Patriots is just merely confirmation of what everybody knows already. And for example, I knew many years ago, so that's it. This is how it all ends. And as I stated many times, I will repeat it again, that Russian general staff is not in the business fighting Ukraine. Ukraine is done. It's just a matter of, as I already stated, time and how many people are left there to die. It's about the militarization of NATO, and it's being achieved with a great success. And this whole Patriot story, yet another stone, so to speak, into this wonderful garden of whoever was talking about. Mr. Borrell, he was talking about that Europe is a garden, wonderful, garden. The rest of it is just dumpster. Turns out it's other way around. And what can I say? So they wanted it, they got it. And now we go to something which is no less important, and let me show you something. While this is the class Borei A, project 955A, Knyaz Vladimir, the strategic missile submarine. Today, Vladimir Putin, and was the part of the ceremony of the raising of the flag. That means enrolling essentially what is called into company, a campaign, or the first line of service of another submarine of this class, the sister ship of Knyaz Vladimir, Prince Pasharsky. And he is a very famous figure. You can see his, basically, if you ever were on the Red Square, you can see this monument to the, what they call citizens, Minin and Pajarsky, who fought off the Polish invasion in the 17th century. So the new submarine of this class enrolled, so to speak, enlisted into the Russian Navy service. And what is important? Vladimir Putin held this meeting about the development of the Russian Navy, and there are some very important points which need to be made about this. And it's actually kind of coincides extremely well. It ties in together very well with the fate of the only Russian aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, because nobody now knows what to do with it. Obviously, Russia does have money. She can obviously continue restoration and modernization of it. But here is what is happened today. President Vladimir Putin took part in the flag-raising ceremony on the nuclear submarine Knyaz Pozharsky in Severodvinsk and spoke about plans for the development of the Russian Navy. Key statements are in this material. Here it is. Obviously, strategically, and you know, Russia allocated enormous sum of money, hundreds of billions of dollars, if you convert it to dollars. In reality, it goes even further to create modern naval forces. And it will be implemented in full. And here are some numbers which you have to understand significance of this. 6 nuclear submarines are planned to be built at Sevmash, obviously main shipyard which builds those state-of-the-art submarines, by 2030. In total, modern submarine ships are in various stages of readiness at Russian shipyards. And he definitely talks about this a lot, about the process, which was process of the consolidation and obviously reformation, if you wish, and modernization of Russian shipbuilding industry. And now, when you look attentively at the tempo of the launching of the submarines, he talks about only 6 new nuclear submarines. And he talks about that the Barei missile carriers from the basis of Russian naval strategic nuclear forces, and taking into account the possibilities of their modernization, will ensure the country's security in the coming decades. Yes, and so he talks about implementation of the program. And again, returning back to Barei class and their main strike weapon, intercontinental ballistic missile Bulava-M. They could be called ballistic only, well, they can fly obviously full ballistic trajectory and release their MIRVs, multiple independent re-entry vehicles, but they carry maneuvering hypersonic blocks. Essentially, what you have, this iterations of other avant-gardes, if you wish. Allegedly, they have, each can carry up to 3 maneuvering hypersonic blocks, and they have enormous range, and you cannot just stop them, period. So, and in this case, Barei class submarines, which are now numbering, it will be 12. For the price of a single American Columbia strategic missile submarine. And those are state-of-the-art and the most silent submarines in the world today, from what I know. And then we have, obviously, this other interesting thing. Vladimir Putin speaking about this, he's talking about it is important to continue the construction of the Yasin-M nuclear submarines. They're state-of-the-art missile-carrying submarines, which carry also Zircon anti-shipping and land attack missile, and we can only imagine now what kind of the weapons they will be receiving in the nearest future, when one considers what is being told to Vladimir Putin by Mr. Krasnikov about the yet another breakthrough in the hypersonic technologies. And I already elaborated on this issue. But then look at this. In the near future, which is up to 2030, you have to build another 9 Project 677 non-nuclear submarines. Okay, so if you take into account those 6 nuclear submarines, which will be launched before 2030, and another 9 state-of-the-art Project 677 non-nuclear submarines, we have what, 15, right? it's a darn good actually tempo of the shipbuilding, especially when you consider that all those submarines carry state-of-the-art weapons which have no rivals in the world. And even this Lada class, that's how they called Project 677, which finally is in serial production, being built serially, they carry all those wonderful 3M14 and 3M54 caliber missiles, and who knows what else. They are small, and the latest versions will be coming up already with the air-independent propulsion, which makes their endurance and make them essentially ocean-going submarines, and yeah. So, and Russians already have the experience with using diesel-electric submarines in oceans, not only, for example, in the seas, but also going and conducting combat patrols, obviously Mediterranean Sea, but also in the oceans. And Lada, Project 677, so we have 9 of them before 2030. So it's immense striking power, and this is not only that. Of course, we're talking about also, Vladimir Putin talks about, pardon me, about the robotic complexes, and we already know what robotic complexes are. There are all kinds of them, from clavicines to, obviously, when you think about Poseidon, what is Poseidon? Well, Poseidon is a robot. It's a full-blown robot. Another matter that it is immensely powerful, and it can actually sink aircraft carrier without any nuclear weapons. It will simply approach it with the velocity of speed of 100 knots, 100 nautical miles per hour, and higher, and nothing you can do about it. You cannot stop it. It will just position itself underneath or under the keel of any kind of the ship and just explode, and that will be it. It carries, we don't know how much conventional explosive it carries, many tons. There's no actually structure which can endure this. And of course we know that it also can carry the terrifying nuclear weapons. And so we look attentively at the development of all those robotic complexes, and of course Rubin, the authors of this, they call it Husky, now they call it Arctur, but suddenly this thing was supposed to be done by 2015 and supposed to be already in the frontline service, this new type of the submarine. Well, evidently they moved it, what is called in Russian, to the left by 15 years. So instead of 2050, these submarines will be going out to sea by 2035. And the work on them has already started. I don't know at what stage it is, but we know that this submarine is something absolutely unique, and it will be able to carry actually simultaneously, obviously, hypersonic weapons and ballistic missiles, and it will be also, well, it's kind of Lego type thing. And new materials will be used there, and robotic complexes, as you can see yourself, is depicted by Rubin itself. That's the picture presented by the Rubin Central Construction Bureau, Design Bureau, which designs those submarines. So you can wait those, and they called Arctur now, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Those are coming very soon, in the nearest 10 years. And so marine robotic systems and the development, which is now full steam ahead of this new Russian Navy, well, what can I say? It will become the most powerful Navy in the world. And when you consider that it doesn't necessarily need well, again, it depends what we mean by the projection of power. We know that the classic aircraft carriers are the thing of the past. I mean, you cannot roll basically the whole aircraft carrier group, or basically carrier battle group, with all those, you know, this whole air wing of whatever, 80 aircraft, the aircraft carrier which is worth $13 billion, and another $13 billion spread between its escorts and the air wing. What are you gonna do? You can lose those 26 billion in one go, and nothing you can do about it. This is what the new revolution, real revolution in military affairs look like. And I want to remind you again this thing. We look at the basically what is the coverage of the latest hypersonic weapons which will be on those submarines, which are already being produced and are already being floated out. So Can you imagine this? Can you imagine what kind of the resources you have to even find one of those submarines? I don't know. And then, of course, you have surface fleet of Russia, which is building now the improved and much larger variants of the Gorshkov class, Gorshkov M frigates, which are really not frigates, they are really destroyers, and they carry 64 cells, and yeah, they're packed with the Zircons and Onyxes, and yeah, you don't want to deal with this type of the ships. So, and this is what Mr. Putin was talking about, and we have to wait and see, but from what I observe, the trend is very stable. It's on the increase, ramping up production of building of those naval assets, and that changes the global balance of power. Not that it wasn't changed already, and then we probably will see the best navy in the world very soon. It's already in its kind of, development phase. And this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And that will be it for today, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.